show you how to use the trucking P&L version 3 that I sell on Etsy. So you can see this version here that is in the red box here. This is what we're demonstrating in this video, and it has the most feature of this set. So the nice thing, or the minimal thing about this set and this spreadsheet that I'm about to demonstrate to you, is that it does not require you to record miles by each state, and it does not require you to record fuel purchase and use in each state. So it does not aid in IFTA reporting. But if you're interested in something more comprehensive and you require something that helps you with IFTA reporting, where you have a summary report of each state that you travel to and the fuel that you purchase and use in each state, check out my other listing here. This set here on the left, this set will help you with IFTA reporting. The downside, or our upside of that, depending on how you see it, is that you need to record information by each state that you travel to. Versus this version, you do not need to do that. You just need to record information by the origin of that load and then the destination of that load. So let's start, and I'll show you how this version 3 works. So this is the spreadsheet that you will get if you buy on Etsy, and it will work with Google Sheet and Excel. So the Excel version only work with Excel 2021 or above. The reason for that is because it uses very advanced formulas that only Excel 2021 and later version have. So before I start, I just want to say that this is not financial advice. This is for informational purposes only. All right, so now we can start. I will show you how to do 2 examples with this spreadsheet. The first example I will show you is how to record an income expense for a specific load. And then the second example we'll do is recording a general business expense. And then we'll go over the 2 dashboards in this spreadsheet. So before I show you the example, let's go over each of the tabs so we kind of have a general idea of what they do. And then from there, we can work on the 2 examples. So when you get this spreadsheet, you get 9 tabs. So the very first tab is the income and expense setup tab, which is this one right here. Here is where you set up your company information, and then you can set up the description for your P&L. And then the load summary tab is where you go in and you set up your load and your business expense. So it's kind of like a central area where you just set up your load information and business expense identifier. And then your income summary tab is where you go in and you record all the income that you receive for your business or your trucking business. Okay. Expense summary is where you come in and you record all the expenses for your trucking business or just your general business expense. And then P&L, this is a auto-generated report. So as you input your data in the load summary, income summary, and expense summary, this P&L report will automatically grab those data and organize them by month, and then by quarter, and then annually. So this year to date is the annual. So you can see here it has 4 quarters, and then it's organized by month as well. And then this comparative P&L here is basically a comparative statement of the P&L report here, but you can pick any 2 months or any 2 quarters that you want to compare, and you can see the dollar change and percentage change. And the load search is you come in here and you can input in any unique identifier, like a load ID or a business expense, and then it'll give you all the information relating to that identifier. It's like doing Google search. And then you get a daily and weekly dashboard. So here is just visual data for your daily and weekly financial and operational information. So the cool thing about this dashboard is you can control what week you want to see. So let's say you pick September, or let's say maybe we pick May, and then you can pick your start date. You can pick Monday to start or Sunday to start. So if you pick Monday, you can see down here in this table, it starts out Monday. And then you can pick Sunday, it starts out Sunday. And here you can pick what week of May you want to look at. You can look at week 1, or week 3, right? You pick week 3, it's from May 12th to May 18th. So you can see here, it matches down here, this table, and this table will populate data based on the date that you pick. And then at the bottom here, it shows you kind of like the highest and lowest fixed and variable expenses per that date that you pick. Okay, and then the monthly, quarterly, and annual dashboard is just visual data for your financial information and operational information for the month and the quarter and the year to date that you can choose from here. All right, so let's do the first example where we input in information for a load. So let's come here first and set up the income expense setup. This is where you need to spend your time when you get your spend your time first when you get this spreadsheet. So here you can input in your company name. So let's just put in my example here, Logistics Sample LLC. So you put in your company name here, it automatically updates on the P&L. So you can see here, it matches. And then comparative also matches. And then here you can change the description of the revenue and operating expenses of your fixed and variable, and then reimbursable costs according to your business needs. So if you change this to sample pay, here it's going to change in the income summary right there, and then your P&L right here, and then on your comparative P&L, and then on your load search as well. So the nice thing about this tab is you have a central location to update all your description, and then it'll flow to all the other tabs as needed. All right. So let's do one more. So I'll just change it back so you can see the changes. So load pay here, so you can see here it changes. All right. And then here you can update your fixed costs and variable costs according to your business needs. So fixed costs are costs that is doesn't change every month, and it's similar every month. So for example, if you have a lease payment or a lot rent to park your truck, if you pay, for lease payment, let's say you pay $1,000 a month to lease your truck for every month for 12 months, that is a fixed cost because that amount is known and it doesn't change. All right. And then variable costs are costs that changes all the time, where it's very unpredictable. So for example, let's say you have office supplies. So you buy office supplies in March for $1,000, but in April you may not need to buy office supplies because you already bought it in March, right? So you spend maybe $2,000 in office supplies, and then April you spend $0, May you spend $0, and then maybe June you spend $100. So that's a variable cost. It changes all the time. And then reimbursable costs are costs that you'll get refunded back. So example of that would be if you're traveling very long distance and your client is willing to pay for your lodging and your meals. Those are reimbursable costs. You pay it first and then you get a refunded, and you give them a receipt and they'll refund you back that amount. All right. So you can edit any of these descriptions according to your business needs, and it should flow to the financial statements. Okay. So lastly, I want to note that when you update the description here, make sure all the description are unique, because there's a formula in this spreadsheet that picks up description by its uniqueness. So if you have something that is similar, the formula is not going to be able to pick information correctly. So let's say if you put load pay and load pay, the formula can't differentiate between those two, and it's not going to pick up data correctly. So if you need to put 2 load pay, just differentiate it by a number. So put load pay 1 and load pay 2, kind of what I have here with fixed cost 1 and fixed cost 2. So just ensure that you update your description according to your business needs, and then make sure that each description is unique. All right. So after you set up the income and expense setup tab and you're happy with it and you're satisfied with it, then you can move on to the load summary. So this is where you set up all your load information, and then this is where we'll start, and I'll show you how to set up a load and how to associate the income and expense to that load. Okay, so let's start. Let's say on 1/1/2025, okay, I have a load. So say Jane Doe, truck number 1, and I'll just give it a load 1, logistics example company C. Okay, origin, let's say going from Portland, Oregon. Your destination is Seattle, Washington. Delivery date, I don't know, let's make it 1/3/2025. Delivery status, let's say it's completed. And then your loaded miles, maybe 300, and then this one 10, so total you travel 310 miles. The average truck MPG, just let's say it's 10 miles per gallon. Let's say you pay $4 a gallon. So the gray cell is, it automatically calculates the data for you. So you just enter data in the white cell. So here it estimates that you need 31 gallons because you're traveling 310 miles and your truck travel 10 miles per gallon. So you need about 31 gallons, and each gallon costs about $4. So you need to spend $124 to get the 31 gallons. And then the expected pay for that is, say I get 3,500, and my expected expenses is maybe 1,200. Okay, and here it automatically calculate your expected net profit. So based on the information you input here, it calculates that you'll get 2,300 net profit. Okay, so this data in column B, W, and X, it will automatically populate after you input in the income and expense summary tab. All right. So now that we set up that load, now we can go and enter in the income and expense for that load. So let's say on 1/3/2025 is when I get paid. Okay. So here it asks you, what is this pay for? So then you can pick here from this drop down menu, which load is it for? So I can pick load 1. So as you input more load information, this drop down menu would have more data in it. So for example, if you set up another load, right, you put load 2 here, it's going to automatically drop down and add that load 2, right? So, but let me just remove this real quick because we only have load 1. So I pick load 1, and let's say I get 1,000 for load pay, 2,000 for trip pay, 300 for fuel surcharge, and 1,000 for detention pay for this load. So total, I got 4,300 for this load, and then let's say I got like $200 in reimbursement, right? So total, I get 4,300 in income and another 200 in reimbursement, and my total, all the cash that I received relating to this load is 4,500. So those are my total inflow. And then my expense is where you can go to this tab and enter in where your expenses related to that load. So let's say on 1/1/2025, I incurred some expenses. So here it asks me what load is it for. So you pick the load, then you can pick the type. Okay, so let's say I spend money on fuel, right? So when you pick the expense type, it will automatically give you the expense category. So when I pick the fuel cost, it knows that it's variable cost because here on the income and expense setup, I put fuel costs under variable costs. So now when I pick fuel costs, it knows that it's variable costs, right? So now let's say I spend $125 in fuel, and then on 1/1/2025, I have more expenses related to that load. So you can keep adding expenses to that load here. So as you have them, right? So let's say encounter tolls, it knows that's a variable cost. So let's say I spend $50 on tolls, and let's say on 1/2/2025, for that same load, I have fixed costs. Say I have insurance. So as you can see here, insurance, it knows that's fixed costs, right? Because insurance, I put it under fixed costs. So come here, let's say another $100, and then on 1/2/2025, again, for this load 1, let's say I have a reimbursable expense. So for communication, I spent $100. Okay. Well, these are my costs for the trip. And then you can see here as I go to the P&L, it doesn't have any data. The reason why is because I selected the year 2030, but I enter in data for 2025, right? So I enter income and expense for 2025. So how you can make it generate that data is just make sure you pick the year that you input the data. So I pick 2025, you can see the data automatically populate. So let's just do a spot check to see if the information is correct. So we enter for January, right? So January we entered 300 loaded miles. Is that correct? So this information here, this operational information, comes from the load summary. So in the load summary, it says that for January, the total loaded miles for January is 300. Is that correct? So we come here, you can see that for January 2025, we enter in 300 loaded and 10 empty. So total we traveled 310. So that looks correct, right? All right, so that looks correct. And then here, it gives you all the trucking income information. So this information here from row 20 to row 30, it comes from the income summary tab. So it says that for January 2025, we received 4,300, which is correct because for January 2025, we enter in 4,300 for total income, right? And then for expenses for January 2025, there's a total of 275. And this information here from row 34 all the way to 65, it comes from the expense summary tab. So let's see if it's truly 275. So come here, add that up, 275. So the reason why I didn't include this 100 is because this 100 here is down here, reimbursable cost. It has its own section at the bottom. Okay, but this is correct. This 275 is the total of variable and fixed costs, which is these variable and fixed costs, 275. So it's adding it up correctly. And then here, it shows you the total operating expense and then tells you the net profit or loss, right? And then the revenue per mile, cost per mile, net profit loss per mile. And down here, this section, it gives you the reimbursable cost. So the reimbursable cost from row 74 to row 84, it comes from two places in this spreadsheet. So on row 84 is the reimbursement received or the inflow that you receive for reimbursement, right? So that could be per diem or any type of reimbursement that you get. So these are the income or inflow for reimbursement. It comes from the income summary tab. So as you can see here for January 2025, we recorded $200 in reimbursement received. So if you go to income summary, you can see that on column O or the reimbursement received column, we recorded $200 for load 1. So that's where the information is flowing from. And then the reimbursable cost from row 75 to row 81, this information here comes from the expense summary. So here we log $100 for January 2025 that we expense for reimbursable costs. So this is where that $100 is coming from. So the reason why I included reimbursable costs not part of operating expense is because generally for reimbursable expenses, you usually get that money back. So your net, it nets out to zero usually, right? But sometimes you might get more reimbursement or you might get less reimbursement. If you get more reimbursement, you get more inflow, right? It's like you made a profit. But if you get less reimbursement, you're in the hole and you had a loss. So you get less cash inflow, right? So that's why I put it here separately, because some people like to have that analysis differently than operating expense. That's why I put it here. But at the bottom, you can see that that reimbursable cost is part of this inflow and outflow analysis. So you can see your profit here is 425, but all of your income and expenses here is 4,500, and all of your costs out here is 375, and your total inflow is 4,125 compared to your net profit of 4,025. The reason is because you receive $100 more than your reimbursable expense. So you have $100 more of inflow. Okay. So that's pretty much how the information work and how this financial report work and how it's displaying data. And then from here, you can pick any 2 months if you go to this P&L here. So let me take a step back. So on this P&L, comparative P&L, the drop-down menu is from the P&L report. So for example, if you change this to 2024, you're not going to get any data because you didn't enter any data for 2024. But I just want to show you an example in the comparative P&L. You can see the drop-down menu change to 2024. So the drop-down menu here matches what is in the P&L report. Okay, it matches the information on this row 11 here. So if you change this back to 2025, you can come here and you can see all the data that populates or being part of that drop-down menu is from January 2025 to December 2025. So you can pick any month or quarter from the P&L report, and then you can compare those 2 months. So we put in data for January 2025. You can see that data just populates, right? And you can see here the total at the bottom matches 4,125, which is the same here, 4,125. So if you put in more data, you can compare. So if you put in February as well, you can compare the two, the dollar change and percentage change. So one thing I want to point out about this comparative statement is that it's taking the change between column C minus column D. So usually you want to have your most current month in this column minus your previous month, which is January, and then you can see the change. Okay. So I just want to point out that direction because sometimes we can do it from the other way. You know, we can take column D minus column C, but for this purpose, this comparative P&L here, the direction is column C minus column D. So make sure that you have the most current month on column C and then the prior month on column D. Okay. So again, once you have the data populate, you can pick any 2 months or any 2 quarters, and then you can look at the dollar change and percentage change, all right? And then you can print out this report as well. And then lastly, not lastly, but next thing we'll talk about is the load search. So the load search is where you can just input in data, and then it will populate that information. So we have inputted data for load 1, right? So if we come here and we want to know all the information that we input for load 1, we can come here and type in load 1. And then as you hit enter, you're going to see all the data that you input for load 1. Here it gives you all the load information, all the load revenue and cash flow analysis regarding that load. And you can see here this information match exactly to the P&L because this load is the same load that is just showing on the P&L, right? So here, 4,125 for this load. Same thing here, right? Because we only enter in one load. And then the other thing I want to show you as well, so I don't forget, is if you go back to this load summary, because you enter in all the income and expense, you can scroll over to the right here and you can see all the actual profit that you make for that load and all the expense and reimbursable expense that you have for that load, and this is your actual profit and loss. Okay, so there's other ways to see the information on the profit and loss for a specific load. So you can come to the load summary to look at that, to scroll all the way to the right after you input in all the income and expenses, or you can come to the load search and type in the load. Okay, and the reason why I don't recommend you look for a specific load in the P&L is because this P&L would be cumulative data for all the load for all the month. And the only reason why it's matching right now is because we only enter in one load for January, right? But if you enter in load 2, load 3, load 4, this data here is going to be much bigger, right? Because it includes data for all the loads. Versus here, it just shows you data for this one specific load. And then also the load surge, it's just going to show you data for that one specific load, okay? And then next one is the daily and weekly dashboard. So we enter in for January. So come here, pick 2025, January, and then I think we put data for January 1st. So here you can see the first week for January is from December 29, 2024 to 1/4/2025, and we enter in data for 1/1 to 1/3. So this here should capture all the data for 1/1 to 1/3. So as you can see, it's populating data for the week and the day as well. And here you can see the expenses here. So if you look at this, you notice it's kind of weird, right? Why would the highest expense and the lowest expense be the same? Usually it shouldn't, right? But the reason why it's displaying that data and it's correct is because you only enter in one expense, right? You only enter in one fixed expense, $100, and naturally that $100 is the highest and lowest at the same time. So if we come back here and we enter another amount for 1/2, it will pick up the lowest value. Because right now, the reason why it's the same is because you only have one value. So that naturally has to be the highest and the lowest, okay? So let's go and put something a little bit less so we can see that that data changed. So on 1/2/2025, okay? And let's say we enter in another load. And then for insurance as well, and let's say we enter in $20. So the lowest should be $20, which is correct. All right. So that's how this dashboard here works. It kind of gives you a table of the financial data, and here you kind of have a little bit of a nicer table of the financial data, and then you have this chart here, this graph, and this bar chart here that shows you information of your net cash flow and outflow, and you can control it with the drop down menu up here on the upper left, okay? And then the monthly and quarterly dashboard, the reason why you're seeing it NA and looking so weird like this is because it has the drop down menu doesn't match whatever is in the P&L, because remember I changed it to 2025 and this was old data. So as you change this back to January, it should auto populate and it should look normal again, okay? So as you can see here on the financial dashboard, it gives you the month, January 2025 financial information. As you can see here, this text would change based on what you pick. So let's say you pick April, it's going to change to April, right? There's no data in April, so there should be nothing here. So January, we put in data for January, so that's why you see January 2025 financial information. You can see here January 2025 operation information. And here is the different cost breakdown, the fixed, variable, reimbursable cost breakdown for the month. And then you can see your quarterly analysis here. And then you have the net inflow, outflow trend for the whole year. And then you have the net profit, operating expense, and revenue for the year as well. And then down here, you have a more of a table breakdown between revenue and expenses for that month. And then also show you data for prior month as well. And the reason why December 2024 is blank is because we don't have any data for that month. All right. So that's pretty much how the information flow in this spreadsheet. So, you enter, you set up the load information, then you can use that unique identifier to associate a revenue and expense to it, and then the P&L automatically grab that data and then display it by the month, the quarter, and the year, right? So now that you know how it works for a load, let me show you how you can input data for business expense. So what if you have a business expense that is not related to a load, right? So for example, if you need to rent a lot to park your truck, or you have a lease payment, or you need to buy office supplies, it's not related to a specific load, but it's part of your business expense. So how would you log it? So the first thing you need to do is you need to go to the load summary tab and add a unique identifier so that the spreadsheet can identify for a business expense. So what I usually do is I just go and put business bus underscore exp, right? And then this will be part of a drop down menu. Then I can associate the expense to this business expense. And sometimes, your business can also have business income that is not related to um, a specific load. So for example, if you have a trucking business, and you're really successful, right? Your trucking business is very successful. You make millions of dollars, and you invest this millions of dollars in securities or bonds, and then you get interest or dividend income out of it, right? It's not related to a load. So how do you record that type of income, that general business income or general business expense? So you have two options. You can set up a business expense or a business income, or you can just do one where you can just go business income. Let me rename it income expense. So what happens is when you set this up here, it becomes a drop down menu, right? So you don't need to put any other data here because it's not related to a load. You can if you want. You can put a date too if you want, but I'm just putting it here so I can have a unique identifier. So let's say we have some sort of business income, a general business income that's not related to trucking. So let's just make this, I don't know, dividend income. Okay. So when we go to this income here, tab here, we can put, let's say on 1/31/2025, I received some dividend income from my business because I invest millions of dollars from my business, and I got insecurities and I got dividend back. So for this, you can put business income and expense. From that drop down, you can pick that because it's not related to a load. And then you can put, I don't know, maybe get $5,000. I mean, $25,000 would sound more reasonable for investing millions of dollars, right? And then let's say you have a business expense as well. Say you pay a lease, right? You can come here, and that business income expense is also part of the expense drop down. And then you come here and you can pick lease payment, and this is maybe $5,000 a month. Okay. Or actually, let me just make it 1,000. All right. So now you go to the P&L, and you can see here dividend income is picking up 25,000, right, for that dividend income. And then you come over here and you can look at the lease expense. We put in $1,000. Okay. So for expense summary, you can put like once a month if you want, right? For lease expense, we expect to pay that every month. So, you can do it for February as well. And then you can do it for March, so on and so forth. But let's just maybe do an example here. So just pick business income, lease payment, maybe 1,000, right? So we should have 3,000. Go through this report, and you can see every month it's picking 1,000 for February, March, which is correct, which is what we've added. In your quarter, you pay $3,000 in lease payment. All right. So if you come into this load search and you enter in that unique identifier, you're going to see all the income and expense, general business income and expense related to that unique identifier. So you can come here. All right. So you can see here, if you put in that unique ID that we set up in the load summary, you can see once you enter it, it shows you have entered in 25,000 for dividend income, and then you've entered in 3,000 for lease payment. So your net profit for just general business income is 22,000, right? Because you got 25,000 minus your 3,000 in lease expense that you paid out or that we logged. So your net is 22,000. All right. Okay. So that's how it works. And you can totally just set up this by, just business expense. If you don't have any income besides trucking income, then you can just set it up as business expense. All right. So that's how it would work, and that's how it would flow if you just have a general business income and expense that's not related to trucking. You can still add it here, and it will flow to your P&L. Okay. So this P&L, it encompasses everything, all of your load and all of your general business income and expense as well. And here it's the P&L. It gives you all the profit and loss. All right. So, one last thing I want to go over is how long can you use this spreadsheet for? So this spreadsheet can go up to the year 2041, if I remember correctly. So let me go back and check. So, yep, it can go up to 2041. So we enter in data for 2025, and we are currently in the year 2025. So if 2026 come, what happens is what happens then, right? So it's, you just pick the year 2026, and then if you enter data for 2026, it should populate. So as you can see here, when I pick 2026, there's no data here because we did not enter in any data for 2026. So if I go in and enter data for 2026, then it will automatically populate. So if I come here and say, on 1/2/2026, let's say for load 1 again, as an example, okay, we got $3,000. And then for expense, 1/1/2026, for load 1, let's say we have an insurance expense and we have $1,000. So in January 2026, the data should populate, right? And you come here, you can see here we have a load pay of 3,000, which we set up, and then the insurance 1,000, which also we enter in. Notice it doesn't have any data here because you didn't enter in any data for the load summary for 2026. If you want something there, you just need to enter in data for 2026 as well. I should move this down because that's related to the general business income and expense, right? You can make this load, we'll make it load 2, and then here we can go from, let's see, Seattle, Washington to LA, California, and then I'll just put 1/4/2026. So we have 400, and then this will be 10. So an example, and then here I'll just do 9, and then I do like 475 because it's expensive in California. I'm not going to put expected pay because I just want to show you how the information flow over. So you can see here on the P&L, it will grab this data because this data we input in for 2026, right? January 2026. Okay. So you can see here the loaded miles, empty miles, we enter in 410 for January 2026, which is correct, right? 2026, January 2026, 410 loaded miles. So if you're wondering, can you use this for multiple years? Definitely. You just need to update the year and then enter in data for that year, and it should pick the information. It will auto-populate information for that month and that year that you pick. And also another thing I want to point out is you can see the start month here. So usually business start their business with a calendar year. So calendar year will be January to December. But if your business starts in June, you can change this to June. It'll start in June. So you can see it's not grabbing any data for January because you started out in June 2026, right? So it's very dynamic and flexible in that sense. So if you want to start your business in February, you can do that as well, and then January. And if you're, you're working on this and you started out in April, you can put April here, and then the data should auto populate to April if you have entered any data for April. All right, so I'll put it back January because most business starts in January. They start with a calendar year, but so that's how it will work. So now let me show you a mock-up file that I've done so that you can see how the dashboard works. All right, so here is a copy that I already filled out. I filled with a lot of information. So I fill out all these data, and I come here to the income tab. I fill all these data for all these loads, and then expense as well. I filled a bunch of data. So P&L, you can see it's all populated, but I filled this out for 2030, so that's why when I pick 2030, all this data populated. And then comparative P&L, I want to show you so you can see, right? So once you have a lot of data entered in here, you can pick any month to, any 2 months or quarter to compare. So you can pick February, right? You can compare that to January. Then you can see the dollar change, and also, did it increase between 2 months or did it decrease? Okay, you can see here. All right. So let's say we pick quarter 2, compare that to quarter 1. How did we do? Right? So you can see like a comparison here. And then the load search, you can put in any load you want and data will display. And then the daily and weekly dashboard, as you can see, you fill out more data. This is what it's going to look like as you pick the drop down menu, right? I don't know if I put data for February. Actually, I only put data for September. So September, and I can pick maybe Monday here, and you can see how the data has changed, right? It shows you all these data right here. So I think it was, all right, so September, so here you can see it's saying that it's displaying data for September 30th, 2030, week 1, which is week 1 you pick here, financial and operational data for that week, right? So it'll show you the inflow and outflow for that week, the net profit and loss for that week, total revenue for that week, fixed expense and variable expense, and it tells you all the load, the total load, the total miles travel, empty miles, loaded mile, and then your revenue per mile. Okay, and then of course you have this table here that should populate, and then you have the monthly, annual, and quarterly dashboard. So here is what I wanted to show you. You can see here it can show you the prior month data and then the percentage change if you put in prior month data, that is. So you can see here, you can pick any month, it'll show you the change. All right. So as you can see here on this little chart here, it shows you the February 2030 operation information here, which is what we picked on the drop down menu. It shows you the total miles that you travel for the current month that you picked, and also show you the prior month or quarter information, and tells you the change between those two information. And then you scroll down a bit, you can see the bar chart for the entire year, which shows you the net profit, operating expense, and revenue. And then on the left is an area chart that shows you the trend for the net cash flow and inflow for the entire year or 12-month period. And then at the bottom, you will see a total revenue and expense chart. And here it will show you the current month that you select. And then it also shows you the prior month to that. And it will tell you the dollar change and percentage change between those 2 months or quarter. Okay, so that's the cool thing about this dashboard, is it can display data visually for any month that you choose here, or any quarter, or any year-to-date data. So that's all I have for this spreadsheet, and I know it was a very long video, and I appreciate your time in watching this, and I hope that if you choose to buy this spreadsheet on Etsy on my shop, that this video can help you in doing your accounting, or help you DIY your financials. So I will put the link to how to purchase this item on my Etsy shop in the description of the video. If you're interested, please check it out. And thank you so much for watching.